All right, everybody, plan for today's show. Yeah, we usually cover basketball. Not much going on. Welcome to the baseball episode of Green with Envy. It's Red Sox Yankees this weekend. We're getting into our baseball bag, and to help us do it, we got our guy Brian Barrett of The Ringer. This is still Green with Envy, so you guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy, or maybe it's Red with Envy, Red with Sox. I don't know. We didn't come up with a good title for this name or a good pun that makes it really make any type of sense, but we're going to talk Red Sox on today's episode. This is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Greg, ready to talk some baseball today?
I got your title. Green with Envy, Seeing Red. Boom.
Ooh, there we go. There we go. Put that into our publication when this hits Spotify and Apple. And to help us get our baseball for dummies on today, we got our guy Brian Barrett from The Ringer. Brian, ahead of this Sox Yankee series, appreciate you making a little bit of time for us.
Anytime, fellas. I mean, disappointing series against the Orioles, disappointing ending to the Marlins series, but can all change this weekend when they take on the almighty Yankees, right?
Yeah, baseball's fickle, man. Momentum, it comes and goes real quick. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into that, let's do. I want to get your quick Celtics offseason thoughts. We are a Celtics podcast, so we'll do a quick little Celtics check in here at the top. This offseason, just high level, Brian. It's been kind of, Greg. What's a good word here? Depressing, morose.
Just a reality check. I think it's just been a reality check as to championship aspirations can only last so long. The window closes faster than most people ever expect it to close.
Yeah, and we're really the first team that's victim to this new CBA, right? Other teams will have a little bit more time to adjust, but the timing of it, Celtics clearly the first victim. So, and then of course you throw in the Jason Tatum injury, and it just sets up for a very interesting year, but certainly less expectations than usual. Through what lens have you viewed this offseason, Brian, for the Celtics?
Yeah, it kind of stinks that this is where they're at, and you can look back to the Tatum injury for why most of these moves happened. I would say that some of them were going to have to happen either way based on the new reality of the CBA, and I think unfortunately for the Celtics, they became the victim of this problem that was not designed for them. This problem was designed where they didn't want Steve Ballmer to keep spending all this money on his team. And by the way, hasn't really worked out for the Clippers despite a decent season a year ago. And the Warriors, that's why these things were put into place. And the only reason people were so upset about the Warriors is years ago in the previous CBA, there was a loophole there where they could sign Kevin Durant. And this all happened because Steph Curry at that time was on the same contract as Ty Lawson because he was at the end of the contract where he's dealing with all those ankle situations. So what has happened to the Celtics now is not why they made this rule. Now, it's always owners trying to protect themselves, right? That's what they're trying to do here from basically spending stupid money, if you will. But if you look at what the Celtics did, it's not like they went out there and just had a crazy spending spree like we see in Major League Baseball all the time. They drafted their 2 star players, and those star players were so good that they deserve supermax contracts or earn them, right? Jalen, perfect timing for him when he came up for his supermax. And I would argue for the sake of the organization too, because he wasn't going to take any less money right at that point. He'd already been dealing with multiple trade things at that point. Remember, it was like a year after the Kevin Durant thing came up, and Jalen and Jason Tatum had to hop on the phone together with Brad Stevens. So they draft those 2 guys. They make an incredibly smart move to trade for Derek White, which at the time, even a lot of Celtics fans were like, this guy, this is who we're trading for.
We're trading Romeo Langford. What the hell?
Yeah. What are we doing? Right. So they make that trade. And then they decide, all right, the Marcus Smart thing, it worked for a long time. But that season, remember, guys, where it's like, wait, hold on. Derek White's been way better in the fourth quarters all year. And as a player at this point, and he's not closing the games. Like, what's going on? Yeah. So you kind of have to take that away from Mazzulla, because Mazzulla, let's face it, he was in a difficult situation, right? Where it's like, okay, you inherit this team a couple days before the season from Ime because of the scandal. So it's tough when you have the most outspoken person on the team to say, hey, Marcus, we're going to sit you down at the end of the fourth quarter. To the point, even when Ime was here, there was a game in the finals where they sat Smart down. I believe it was the finals of the conference finals. Forgive me there. But he said, hey, Mark is such a great teammate for that. It's like he had to say that at that point. Now you got Joe Mazzulla coming in, who's accomplished nothing. He wasn't even on the front row of the bench that season, right? So you make that trade that works out. And then then Porzingis comes back. You actually gain picks in that deal, right? And then when it's like, wait, hold on. So Drew Holiday's in Portland. Drew Holiday's available. It's going to cost you Robert Williams and some picks. Do you want to do it? Yeah, let's do that. So all those moves were smart picks, even to the point where look at Peyton Pritchard's extension, which thankfully they signed that when they did because the price was only going to go up. So they make all these smart moves, and now they're punished by the league, right? And that's not what the league should be doing. Like that is not – I don't believe that's what the league was designed to do, but it's going to happen to other teams down the pipeline here. Like it's going to happen to Oklahoma City. If the Rockets guys continue to improve, it's going to happen to some of those teams as well. We've already seen it affect some other teams across the league. But so that was my first thing after the whole offseason. I was just bitter about this because, and look, we were screaming about it before it even went into place, but it just stinks. It's just, that's the reality of where they're at. But hey, I will say this, like the Drew deal, this may sound weird to say, but when we found out they weren't getting the second round picks back, in a weird way, I felt better about it because I'm like, oh yeah, like there's something there with the medicals. He's coming off worst season.
Good point. Good take.
Shoot the ball well, and then they're like, oh yeah, there's something here in the medicals. So unfortunately, this is where they're at, and they're going to have to basically put a new team around Tatum when he's ready to come back. And look, this team right now does not look like it's contending for anything, but you never know in terms of what moves they can make down the pipeline here. And it all depends on where they finish this season, I would say.
Yeah, Will, I guess mallet finger is a worse malady than we thought. Huh?
So it's a lingering injury. It might be career altering.
I was as Brian was talking, I was like, what was that injury? Was it called like a hammer thumb or something? No, mallet finger.
Yeah. Well, remember, then he had the leg thing. What was it, the calf or the hammy in the playoffs? Because he played so well in those first two games covering Banchero. Remember, he's like the only guy that could guard him. And then he goes down with another injury, and he just look, he's in his mid-30s at this point, and I mean, it's a contract. It's just they knew at the time that wasn't going to be a great contract. The question was going to be, can you move it? And Portland's like, yeah, we'll take it. I don't know why Portland took it, but they did.
Dude, I've been trying all offseason to figure out what Portland. I mean, I guess cool. You have a veteran presence there, but I thought that was. We talked about this for a bunch. I was like, you gotta have to put a pick on that to move that contract. It's a bad contract, even if you like Drew Holiday. It's a bad contract, but. That's where franchises like Portland come in, and they sometimes they save you with whatever they have going on.
Yeah, the one interesting thing to me is, so I feel like now, based on where they're at in terms of, I think there's a question down the road. Can you continue to build around two guys on Supermax contracts? And I'm not bringing up the whole, can Tatum and Jalen play together? I'm just talking about the finances of it, right? In terms of building around those two guys.
Can their contracts play together? Not them on the court. Can their contracts?
Exactly. So, but the other component to this is like, all right, so they really have to find out this year. I think the most interesting storyline is not like, hey, can Jalen be a legitimate, bona fide number one option, right? What will Derek White be as like the definitive number two option on this team? I think the more compelling thing in terms of when Tatum eventually returns and when this team is trying to compete again around a guy that's still going to be in his prime, even if he's lost, 2 to 5%. I still think he's going to be really good coming off the injury. We'll see. If he changes his game a little bit, he may have to embrace like some more mid-range shots based on that. Like, like maybe not take all those step back threes. Like Kevin Durant talked about that recently. But anyway, it's like, all right, is Hugo Gonzalez part of the rotation going forward? Because this is a guy you took late in the first round. And it's a guy that from an athletic standpoint, I mean, measured through the roof. The guy's got like the biggest hands in the history of the combine. It's crazy, right? I mean, yeah, he's got the Kawhi Leonard mitts. And then, all right, I don't know about Jordan Walsh. I think it probably would have clicked by now. But then Baylor Shireman, like I don't think Baylor Shireman's ever going to be pushing for an all-star team. But can he be a rotation guy, a starter with Tatum and Jaylen Brown for 4 to 5 years? And then so that's the two guys that I'm the most interested in. And then like, all right, and knock on wood that this doesn't happen. Like, what if Derek White misses 2 to 3 weeks? What if Jaylen Brown misses 2 to 3 weeks, right? Where are you at in the standings? is it the worst thing in the world, guys, if they end up in the lottery next year? Because it's going to be another stacked draft class. And then you can always maneuver that and say, all right, well, maybe somebody wants this first round pick and there's a disgruntled star that may want to come play with Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. I think that's sort of the most interesting thing to me. And then it feels like they want to build with White and Jaylen Brown around Jason Tatum, but I also think I was surprised they didn't sort of investigate the market for those guys more so than we heard, right? Like some of the potential trades that came out didn't really, like the Derek White, the Toronto trade. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to give up more for Derek White in that Toronto trade. But I am surprised they didn't sort of look at that more, because it does feel like building the next great team around Tatum and Jaylen on those contracts, it's going to be difficult to do. Not impossible, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, that's one of those clips, Brian, when they look back like 2 years from now and we start laughing about us imagining Ugo, Jordan Walsh, and Baylor Shireman being part of an NBA rotation, right? Like, we're talking ourselves into these guys that have not proven it whatsoever on the NBA level to potentially bridge the gap between these two generations of Celtics, all built around Tatum, Brown, and White. But you know, with Tatum, it's funny. I've literally been having dreams about Jason Tatum coming back earlier than expected. Like we see Jason Tatum in December and we're like, what the hell is Jason Tatum doing on the court? And in my dreams, every single time he gets hurt again. And I'm like, God damn it. I just don't want that to happen.
Your dream, so this is like a Meek Mill song, Dreams into Nightmares, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what you're talking about.
I think my subconscious is telling me that the Celtics are not going to do this because we don't want to see Jason Tatum come back too soon from an injury and end up being out the next year or being compromised for, 3 years out of his prime. We just want to see Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White have another legitimate shot. And I do think, even as much as I want to just talk myself into the Celtics competing next year and rooting for an underdog and seeing the Jaylen Brown #1 option thing happen and flourish and him being an all-NBA guy, people talking about him like fringe MVP candidate, all that stuff that's out there. Like, what's really going to help this team long-term is if they probably get a better draft asset. And that's kind of where we're at. You know what I mean? But I don't want to get there yet until we see what the product is out there on the court, because I don't want to just throw away a whole season, right? I want to talk myself into some legitimate hope for next year and a real reason to watch other than can Ugo Gonzalez be a real rotation guy.
Right. I just look at it from the perspective of like, okay, the center rotation went from one of the deepest in the league, despite Porzingis' health issues, right? And Al Horford still was doing his thing in the playoffs at times. And Kornet, of course, everyone's going to remember that Knicks game that he had. And Kornet's just a really good player. I mean, anything you look at it from his production when he's on the court to the impact metrics, they're all really good. You lose all three of those guys, you don't really have a defensive center in the mix right now. You're looking at the Garzas of the world, the Bouchers of the world. You're looking at a rookie, right, in Williams. I feel like this team, I don't know how to make a case that they're going to be good defensively, despite the fact that you have Derek White, who at one point, of course, was an all-NBA defender. But Jaylen Brown, I feel like last year was not quite the same defender that he was the year before. And I think part of that, he was dealing with injuries towards the end of the season. Of course, we know that he got the knee surgery. But let's say you get to the point where it's like, Tatum may be pretty close. Like, he's looking pretty good. And it's like, okay, but we're hovering around like somewhere between 7 and 9. Jaylen, you get tendonitis or something. Derek White, something's going. I think something's wrong with your elbow, man. And then you get into the lottery, because like, even if you say, okay, we can get into the playoffs and potentially make a run, it's like, yeah, but without what you had supporting those guys in the past, what's the chances you can actually? Because at this point now with the Celtics, it's all about winning championships with Jason Tatum as your main guy. So if that's the case, what's your best way to get to a possible championship again? It's not trying to compete with the guys that you have right now this upcoming season. It's, hey, how can you add additional assets and players around Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White? And that may be one of the only ways. This may be one of the only chances they really have. That's why I mentioned Ugo Gonzalez is just like, I think he's an intriguing player as a rotation guy going forward. But getting into the lottery, like, you may find somebody that could be a significant starter for you for the rest of Tatum's tenure here. That's why I think, like, okay, if you have an opportunity to do that, and obviously you got to convert on the pick, right? But that's something that I would look at and say, okay, that may be the best possible situation for the Celtics, is it's a legitimate off year and they get a lottery pick.
Yeah, it's kind of analogous, real quick, Will, kind of analogous to like when Jordan retired, right? Because the Bulls, when you think about
I've looked
their
at
front
these.
court, you've looked at this too, like their front court, right, was depleted in the years that Michael Jordan wasn't playing, right? So when they when they ended up bringing in Dennis Rodman, he wasn't there for those years that Jordan was out, right? The year and a half that Jordan was out. So it was kind of unlikely that they were going to win a title anyway, if like going up against the Rockets and like what they had with their front court and everything. And it's pretty analogous to what's going on with the Celtics. It's just Tatum didn't retire. He tore his Achilles. Exactly.
Yeah. And if you look at those Bulls rosters, it's legitimately the first three-peat. Like you have Pippen and Jordan, and you have this set of guys. You have Horace Grant, you have the Judd Bushlers, you have Stacey, you have a couple of different guys around them. You take those 2 years off, it's still just Pippen and Jordan, and then they just replaced it with the Ron Hopper, Tony Kukoc, Luke Longley, and they just rebuilt. And that's exactly what I looked at maybe a few episodes ago, Greg, where I was like, I could kind of make a comparison here to the, to the three-peat Bulls, but that feels a bit far. We won 1 championship, they won 3, and then came back and won 3 more. But I do think there is a little bit of similarities to that. But I do want to transition us here because I want to. This is the baseball episode, so I want to talk a little baseball here. And Brian, I've been trying to throw myself back into baseball this year. Like, I won't lie. Greg and I have said this before. That was probably when we were growing up in Dorchester. That was probably our number one sport for a time. Definitely mine for a long time, up until probably about the 08 Celtics. And a big part of that was Sox Yankees. I was actually at the Veritek and A-Rod fight. Like, that was one of the games that I was at in person as, like, I don't know, whatever I was, 13 years old, 14 years old. Like, one of the coolest games I've ever been to. And so I want to start high level with a little bit of nostalgia for us, because we're all about the same age. Sox Yankees this weekend. I think back to like mid 90s to like mid 2000s and how intense that rivalry was. And now Greg and I have lived in Texas for about 13 years. So part of this is me being just outside the city, but I do feel like there's not that same intensity to the rivalry. Would you push back on that, or do you feel similar being in the city? This, again, might be me being removed from the area.
No, I agree with you, because you had the arms race, right? I mean, you think all the way back to the A-Rod situation where the Players Association wouldn't let A-Rod take the pay cut. So of course, the Red Sox didn't get him. And then you have the whole Kevin Millar thing where he's going to patch it up with his teammates because he said he wanted A-Rod when these other guys were in the trade, right? So then they go back and forth for those 2 years. And of course, the Sox with the epic comeback. But you also had the brawls involved in the middle of that as well. And it felt like every offseason, they were sort of going up against each other to see who could get what. I mean, the epic comeback, I mean, people, like, they still have to win the World Series, and everybody knew they were just going to win the World Series. But then the Red Sox go on their run there. They win again in 07. The Yankees win in 09. And then they're really never good again at the same time, right? The Red Sox win in 2013 when the Yankees are not good. And then the Red Sox become the perennial winner of the division for that 3-year period where they have young Mookie, they have Jackie Bradley Jr., Andrew Benintendi. Eventually they make the sale trade, the price trade. And the Yankees aren't really that competitive until 2018. And the Red Sox beat them in that series. And you have the whole situation with Aaron Judge, where Aaron Judge goes by the Red Sox clubhouse playing New York after they win one game. And the Red Sox would not lose another game that particular series, right? That 18 team was a wagon. They lost, 3 postseason games the entire run. We had then we have the brief moment in 2021. This is after the Yankees are good for a couple of years and the Red Sox stink, right? After the Mookie Betts trade. They make it to the playoffs in 2021. That's one of the most electric atmospheres I can imagine, because at that time, you're just coming back from COVID, right? Now you actually have like a full stadium. Jerry Remy is battling his illness, and he comes out and he throws the first pitch. The place goes electric, but it's only a 1-game playoff. You win. They light up Garrett Cole. But then since then, the Red Sox have been bad. And even when we had moments, right, where it's like, all right, Garrett Cole threw at Rafael Devers because he can't get him out, which obviously, I mean, that won't happen. That won't occur. Garrett Cole's injured and Rafael Devers is playing in San Francisco. But the point being is, recently the Yankees have been a really good team. They just made it to the World Series. The Red Sox have not been good. So I think if we're actually going to get back to that, this would be the year. It would be shocking to me if both these teams don't make it into the postseason, considering the wild card situation. But the reality is, you got to play in games that are important for this stuff to matter. Like, if the Rafael Devers Garrett Cole situation that occurred last year happened this year, it would be a massive story, right? But the Red Sox were out of it. They had no business. So I agree with you. And the reason is I'd put most of this on the Red Sox recently, that they haven't been good enough to compete with the Yankees in recent years. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But I'm hoping that this is the start of it again.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, in the late teens, the Astros were the team that we were competing against, right? And being down here in Austin, we went to a lot of the games in Houston.
Yeah.
And, we were just like, talking shit with the Astros fans and whatnot. But there was this healthy level of respect, but that developing sense of hatred and vitriol that I really felt whenever we would play the Yankees when we were younger. Real quick, before we continue to get into this, it was actually funny. I texted Will about this. But I was at the airport coming back from Boston this past weekend, and I'm on this 6 a.m. flight. And as I'm waiting to board the plane, I see this guy go ahead of me, probably about like 5'11", 6 feet. But I'm like, man, he looks familiar as shit. And I hear him talk and I see his teeth and I hear this like Texas twang. I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking Kevin Millar right there. Kevin Millar is right in front of me. So I like cut the guy in front of me so that I could like walk behind Millar as we were going onto the plane. So I was right behind him on the jetway, and I was just like, hey, Millar, thanks for 04. And he turned around. We had this like beautiful, like 5 to 7 minute conversation. He was like, yeah, man, it's still crazy when I go on. We were just at Fenway. He was with his buddy. He was like, this is my first time. It was my buddy's first time in Fenway. And I felt like a celebrity again. Everyone's banging on the windows of my car, asking for pictures and whatnot, telling me cowboy up. And I was like, man, this is fucking cool. Like, like Kevin Millar is right in front of me at the airport. How cool is that? How serendipitous.
Yeah, what's so crazy about Millar is, of course, he famously, and it's in like every Red Sox documentary, he's telling Shaughnessy, don't let us win today. We got Petey, then we got Schill and all that, and who knows what happens at a Game 7. And then he, of course, gets the hit to get Roberts on base, where everybody knows he's going to steal second. But then, like, Bill Miller, who had won a batting championship, actually gets the hit to tie the game. And like everybody forgets that Bill Miller had that huge hit. Everybody remembers Roberts, and everybody remembers all the stuff that had, like the Yankees are my daddy, Pedro, all the Ortiz moments.
Speaking of Bill Miller, like I mentioned, I was at the game where Barrett and A-Rod get into the fight. Bill Miller is the one that hits a walk-off against Mariano Rivera to end that game. Bill Miller is kind of a forgotten third baseman, I feel like, or just player in general in Red Sox lore. Like you said, he won a batting title that year. And now we're really getting into the nostalgia-driven Sox Yanks. And this is the shit I miss. Like I miss how, like, and I remember being at that game. Like, first of all, shout out to my parents for letting me go as like a 13, or just me and my buddy Chris. Like, we probably shouldn't, like, that was back when Sox Yankees environments were probably a little too hostile. Like it was like constant fights. Yeah, like constant fights were breaking out everywhere. Like it was probably the closest that there's ever been to like international soccer. You hear about like these type of environments. That's probably one of the closest has been like Red Sox Yankees back in the day. But it was pretty exciting. A little element of danger. I don't know. I think we need it back. I think we need a little bit more danger in the attendance for people going to these games.
Yeah, and I think this weekend, the aggravation for both teams is pretty high, right? The Red Sox have been playing brutal baseball recently. They're 4-8 in their last 12. Their bullpen has been a disaster. They were 0 for 13 on Tuesday with runners in scoring position. They loaded the bases 3 times and didn't generate a single run, right? They got all these guys that aren't hitting post All-Star break, although they get Nathaniel Lowe, who draws a walk in the first game of the series, has a huge home run.
Only guy that did something last night, hit a 2-run homer in the ninth.
Seriously. So you got all these problems with the Red Sox, and then the Yankees fans, they all hate Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman at this point in time. It's not a very versatile team. So I think you could see some sort of frustrations boil over in this game. If it gets out of hand one way or the other, if there's some frustration with the way that the series is going, and the Red Sox beat up on the Yankees earlier this season, like you wonder if some of that comes to the front lines and we actually get something, because that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, at least from my perspective. I could see something happening this weekend because both teams are competing for one of those wild card spots.
Yeah, what do you make of this Red Sox team right now? I mentioned so I had my baby girl was born end of April, and so like I've had some time off, and I was able to kind of just like, while taking care of her, throw a lot of baseball on in the background that I'm not always able to do. So I've actually been watching more Red Sox this year, and part of that has been their success, right? Like with Greg and I covering the Celtics, I got to pick and choose my battles, and baseball's a long fucking season. And so if the Sox aren't good, I just can't I just can't give it the time that I used to. I was thinking about earlier, I used to know everyone from the major leagues down through about AA. Like I was thinking of a time recently that I was in like Pawtucket when I was a kid, and I was like, holy shit, that's Brian Rose. I don't know if you guys remember Brian Rose.
Dude,
like,
that's I was like, I bet he's gonna fucking say Brian Rose.
Yeah, it was like a Brian Rose Capovano, and I was like starstruck. Like, right, that's how
my guy
locked
Izzy
in.
Alcantara.
Yeah, exactly. And like I just can't do that anymore. So I can only really lock in like when they're good. And this team, they're 68 and 59. You mentioned, Brian, they're in the middle of this. For those listening that aren't as aware, that maybe are more basketball than baseball fans, there's now 3 wild card spots. So they're in the second of the 3 wild card spots, a game behind the Yankees going in to this 4-game series and a half game ahead of the Mariners. And as I've watched this team, Brian, I really can't decide if they're good or not. I really there's parts of this team that they get really streaky. And they went on that, what is it, like a 10-game winning streak, I think, right before the All-Star break, where it's like, this team is real, especially after that was when the Rays were still pretty good and they swept them to end the first half of the season. And you can see glimpses of this team being really good. But then there's nights like last night, like you said, like you have your 3, 4, and 5 hitters, and a guy who's been released twice this season from 2 different teams comes in and essentially throws 14 pitches, and like 11 of them are changeups, and he gets 3 straight strikeouts with the bases loaded and the game on the line. And I'm like, that's not a good, like, you can't be a good team and go through that spell. And they loaded the bases in 2 other separate innings. So you mentioned the bullpen's a mess. Tell me, just, is this a good team or not? Because I really can't tell watching this team for the last 2.5 months.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good team. It's also a flawed team. Like, if you look at the lineup right now, you basically have, and Duran's been scuffling lately, may have had an issue in that game last night too, as well. But you have basically the top of the order with Anthony's been amazing. He's legitimately already been one of the best players in baseball since he got called up. You have Trevor Story's having this renaissance year where, look, not great that he couldn't that he grounded out in that situation with the bases loaded on Tuesday night, but Story since the start of June has been one of the best run producers in the game. He's been in the top 5 at RBI since the start of June. And then you have Duran has picking his game up lately, although slumping a little bit lately. And then you have Bregman. And then there's a huge cliff with the lineup. Now, Abreu's had his moments, but now he's dealing with the calf situation. They have 5 guys in the second half of the season that are below replacement level players in terms of wins above replacement that have just been bad. So the lineup has not been productive outside of those top 4. The bullpen is leaking. They keep sending guys down and bringing them up. They're the worst team I think I've ever watched in terms of mop-up duty. Nobody can come into us. Like, the reason they lose Sunday is because it's a 7-2 game, and you have to get Chapman in the game to get 1 out. So he pitches Friday, Saturday, and the Red Sox have taken care of him to the point where he's having arguably his best season. They're not going to use him on Sunday. Everyone's like, well, it's 1 out. Why can't he come in? It's like, well, he has to warm up too, right? He doesn't just come into the game. There's a whole process here. They don't want to use him 3 days in a row. That's part of their process with him. So then we have the same situation present itself the other night with Jordan Hicks. He can't come into mop-up duty. They have one reliable right-handed reliever right now, which is Garrett Whitlock, and that's it. They get all these, like, the trading deadline was aggravated because it's like, all right, you get Steven Matz for the bullpen. You already have a million lefties. Like, I don't know why you need another lefty. And then you didn't get a first baseman to replace Toro, although let's see, like, this Lowe situation may work out for them. And they didn't add another starter. Like, you look at the rotation right now, Crochet is one of the best pitchers in the sport. It's going to be him or Scuba that wins the Cy Young. Bayo's taken a massive step forward. He's a reliable 2 to 3 guy in your rotation going forward. It's a really good contract they signed. But then it's like Buehler. I thought, all right, he looked all right the first 4 innings, and then he turns back into Buehler where he gives up a double and then he walks a guy. He's got 2 less walks than his career high in walks. And the season he had his career high in walks is 52. He threw 100 more innings than he's thrown this year. He cannot get batters out. If you look at his numbers, he is last in Fangraphs WAR among pitchers that have thrown at least 100 innings. He's legitimately the worst starter in the game. Giolito's been up and down. Now, I like what we've seen with May. May's thrown the ball really well since he came over. But it's just like, all right, you have 2 good starters. Right now, you have 2 guys in the bullpen that you can rely on, and Whitlock and Chapman. You don't want to bring them into games that you may not win, obviously. So you got to be careful with those guys. Hopefully, you get Slayton back, who was good at the beginning of the season. He's on a rehab thing. But it's just short, and as many things as Breslow has done well in recent history, they really sat out the trading deadline, which is just sort of frustrating from a Red Sox perspective because you could have helped this team out. I mean, the bullpen's a mess. They have no answers for their bullpen right now. Like, people are criticizing some of the managerial decisions. Like, who are you bringing into these games? So, all right, Alcala, he's gone. And then Jordan Hicks. Who else you going to? Oh, let's bring in Justin Wilson. He gets slammed, right? Weiser gets hit. It's just like nobody's reliable in that bullpen outside of two guys. So it's difficult when your starter is like a Buehler, doesn't go deep into the game. You look like Crochet gives you a great outing the other day. You're up 3-1 and you lose because your bullpen can't shut it down. I don't know if I answered the question.
That's okay. That happens sometimes around here. We never know if we actually get to some of the points that we're trying to make. But so I think but I do think that's a good breakdown, just this team overall. And so let me ask you, because I think you mentioned Roman Anthony has been everything and more that he was supposed to be, right, since he came up. So when you look at these young guys, let's remove him from the equation for a second here. Who are the guys that you look to that you think can help this team this year and then beyond? Like who are the main guys that you're like, they have to be here this year and going forward?
Yeah, well, Meyer is just, it's sort of unfortunate what he's been dealing with, right? Because if you look at the last 4 seasons, he hasn't finished a year. And he hasn't played 100 games. And at this point, you can say, oh, they're all different injuries, right? This one is a wrist. He dealt with a lat situation. He dealt with a shoulder situation. It's just like at this point, he's not a reliable guy from a health perspective. And you look at in the minor leagues, he didn't really hit left-handed pitching well. And when he came up this year, it was only because Bregman was dealing with an injury. And immediately when he comes up, Cora says he's probably not going to play against lefties, right? He's only playing against righties. So like him coming back next year, you'd say, all right, that can be great going forward. It's like he hasn't proven himself enough to me to be that caliber of player. So I'm still hesitant on him. Like, can he be this great guy for this team going forward? I don't know. Christian Campbell had this great month of April. And then in the month of May, he was the worst hitter in Major League Baseball. He doesn't hit the ball in the air, and he struggles to make loud contact. Now, we'll see if that improves. He's had some really good numbers at AAA recently. We'll see if he can be part of the future. I just don't know what position he's going to play, because the outfield is pretty full. You'd hate to put an athlete like him at first base, like if that's his position going forward. So those two guys that were like the big three with Roman Anthony, I really don't think it's a big three. I think Roman Anthony's going to be one of the best players in the game, and we'll see if those other two guys work out. In terms of like on the younger side, Abreu's in his mid-20s. He's crushes right-handed pitching. He's already won a Gold Glove. Really valuable player to play right field. He's going to be up and down in terms of his hitting, but he's a guy that can hit for real power. He leads the team in home runs right now. So I think that's a guy that certainly can be a contributor going forward. And then Rafael has had a horrible stretch post All-Star break, but his defense alone, like he's most likely going to win the Gold Glove in center if he stays out there. His defense,
he's unbelievable.
Alone,
and anytime he's at second base, and he's a fine second baseman too. But it's just you can't have him out of position. He's just too. I mean, honestly, like the Sox have been kind of blessed with when you think of whatever you want to think about JBJ at the plate. He was phenomenal to watch in center field, and Rafaela might even be better.
Yeah, and that's where his value is. He's going to be streaky as a hitter. Right now, he's on the downside. He was prior to the All-Star break on the upside. So that's a guy and he's already extended in terms of a long-term contract there. Bayo, I would consider to be part of the long-term future. And then Peyton Tolley, I was just crushing the bullpen. I hope at some point he's up prior to the end of the season, because now with all these other guys graduating as prospects, he's a number one prospect, and he's 6'5", 230. And, in baseball now they measure everything. His extension, it would be like third in Major League Baseball right now. So he's like legitimately right on top of you. Like guys like the Logan Gilberts of the world that have these long extensions, and he's got a ridiculous fastball. That would be another guy that's part of the future. But I hope he's up this year, because they could start, even though he's a lefty, I was saying they don't have righties, they could certainly use his arm out of the bullpen. I mean, you got 98 to 100 that you can reach if you're just going all out for a couple of innings in the playoffs. That's somebody that they certainly have to consider bringing up, especially if they're going to be in the playoffs. Like, you might as well go for it, because the one silver lining in all this is like the best teams are all in the National League, right? We're talking about the Phillies of the world, the Cubs of the world. I don't know how the Brewers are doing what they're doing. You still have the Dodgers, who have been the Death Star. The Padres have a really good team, although they don't hit for any power. You look at the American League, I would say on paper, Seattle probably has the best team with the pitchers they have, but Kirby got lit up the other day. Gilbert got lit up the other day. Woo's been awesome for them. And they added a lot at the deadline, the Naylors of the world, the Suarez's of the world. But the American League after that, who are you scared of, right? The Astros, I mean, you sweat. I know they just beat you 2 out of 3, or you swept them earlier this season. I mean, who in the Tigers? They don't really hit that well. Like, yeah, Scubal's awesome. They don't really have an intimidating lineup. So who knows? Just get in and see what happens. Go back to a couple of years ago. Arizona ends up in the World Series. And I'm not predicting the Red Sox are going to win the World Series. I'm just like, get in and give your team the best chance to sort of go at it.
Yeah, and when you got Crochet at the top of the rotation and you've got a, lights out closer like Chapman, and you got the bridge to Chapman and Whitlock, you can get off to a nice lead in any series that you have, right? I like our chances, and with Crochet going up against anybody. I do want to talk a little bit about the Patriots though, because this is another team I want to get excited about. Drake May, Henderson in the backfield. I think the secondary looks pretty good. Mike Vrabel coming in. There's a lot of reason for the Patriots fans to have a lot of optimism going into this year, but I don't know how optimistic I should be. So Brian, tell me your thoughts on the Patriots coming into this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on Henderson, man. I'm really excited. Like when they made that pick, second round, I'm like, oh man, I love the guy, love the player. Watch him at Ohio State. Just watch him in the college football playoff. But a running back with all the needs that this team has, and I'm like, oh, okay. So this is why they did that.
Did that first kickoff return do it for you? The first time he touched the ball and he took it to the house?
Yeah, and then he trucks a dude like his first carry, and then last game, the touchdown they run in. And I'm like, oh, well, this could actually really help Drake May because he could be a receiver out of the backfield as well. So I love that pick. I still think you have massive questions on the offensive line. You're probably going to be starting two lefties on the left side, and we'll see what Will Campbell does in year one, as he's supposed to be obviously the franchise left tackle. I think there'll be some growing pains there. It's funny, PFF, and I love PFF, but they put up like the grades for the preseason. It's like, oh, Will Campbell, the best pass blocking grade in the preseason. It's like, okay, yeah, but Washington and Minnesota didn't play any starters, so he's going up against all backups. Let's see what he does when we get to the regular season. So that's a concern. The receiving core, it's improved, but it's kind of like the line. The line was, by the metrics, the worst line in the league last year. 31st in pass block, 32nd in run block. So it's like, okay, can you get to 24th? Can you get to 20th? Same thing with the receivers, right? We'll see what Diggs is coming off this injury. I like Demario Douglas. I like Booty, but it's not like there's a ton of guys on that team that you're scared of. Now, I do think the defense is going to be really good with, I think, the secondary, despite the fact that Duggar may not even make the team or he's going to get traded. Peppers was one of the best safeties when he actually played last year. Gonzalez is an all-pro. So I feel like this defense, and then you brought in Carlton Davis, really nice pickup, even if he's dealt with injuries. Spillane in the middle of the defense is really good. And then you got Barmore and Milton Williams up front. I mean, the edge rushers, not the best, even though Landry's coming off a 9.5 sack season. But the one thing that I'm really optimistic about, well, two things. A, they have the second easiest schedule in the NFL, which that's always nice. And if you look at the quarterbacks they play, it's not really a daunting schedule when you look at that. And then the Drake May, can he take the second year leap? And my only concern with Drake May is this. This whole training camp has been about take care of the football, take care of yourself. Like Vrabel was so mad after the fumble he had in the Washington game, which I get it. I just hope there's not too much emphasis on that, because what makes Drake May great is partially the schedule stuff, right? He's rolling out to his right. He can throw the ball down the field. I mean, you think about two of his highlight plays last year, the Titans game where he's running around for 11 seconds, finds Ramondre. The Arizona game, he's running to his left and he flicks it with his right hand, like a backhand, like a second baseman to the shortstop to find Demario Douglas. So I just hope they don't I hope he's still the same aggressive self. Like, I understand you want to cut down on the turnovers, but that'd be my one concern. But if May takes the year two leap, it should be a playoff team.
Brian, you've got the heartbeat of Boston down. You were at WEEI. You're at the Ringer now, and this is something I've always think about from time to time, is that it feels like the standings amongst the professional sports teams in Boston, like I feel like those rankings always kind of change. Like growing up, going back to the nostalgia that we talked about, like it was a Red Sox town, right? Like Red Sox through and through, up until basically Tom Brady, I feel like turned Boston into a football city, football state, however you want to look at it. You go back to the 80s at certain points, maybe it was more Celtics, Bruins. Like you can make these different cases. Where is it at today when you look at the Patriots, the Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Bruins? Because I think they're all at really interesting times. And I'll save that I don't have a lot of Bruins takes or thoughts, so I'm throwing them in there to be nice. I have no thoughts on the Bruins whatsoever. But I think specifically with the Pats, like we mentioned, Drake May. Red Sox, we just talked about Roman Anthony and all the young guys they have. Celtics, this has been the culmination of the Jays on the way up, supposed to be at their peak right now. And of course, we're getting a year hiatus with Tatum. So how do you look at, I guess, fan interest and where the town leans as to it feeling like a Celtics town, a Red Sox town, a Pats town? Where is that right now?
Well, I would say, like, if the Patriots are really good or the Patriots are really bad, they're going to be number one because it's the NFL. They garner the most attention. I do think that the Celtics.
When do you think that changed, though? Because it used to be a Red Sox town where that's where the vibe of the city went when we were growing up. I think Tom Brady flipped that, and I thought it was loosening, but maybe that still hasn't changed, and it still just goes as the Patriots go now. That's part of Tom Brady's legacy.
Yeah, it's definitely Brady because you had like the Patriots and the Red Sox being good at the same time. The Red Sox won in 04, the Patriots coming off that dynasty. And then Brady kept it going, right? 07, they have the perfect season and all that. And then, of course, you have the situation where they have the second dynasty. So they're clearly the team. Even when the Red Sox are winning World Series during that stretch in 13 and 18, they were still the team. I would say like the Bruins are a distant fourth, unfortunately. They had this stretch where they set the record for the most points and the most wins in an NHL regular season. And then, unfortunately, they lose to the Panthers. They blow that 3-1 lead. And they really, as an organization, never recovered from that. They went all in, and I understand why they did that. And they were competitive the next year, made it into the postseason again. They end up losing. They beat Toronto. They lose to Florida. And then this year, it completely falls apart for them. So they are in a rebuild. They still have one of the best goal scorers in the league in David Pastrnak, but they're in a complete rebuild right now. They just don't have a lot of talent. I would say, like, if the Patriots are good, they're going to be number one. That's just like the reality of it. And now I really think the Red Sox have an opportunity to get into, because we haven't had relevant baseball in August and September since 2021. And I think most Celtics fans understand, like, or maybe not all of them, but like, you're not going to be.
We can check the comments. Not all of them get it.
Yeah.
Some get it.
Yeah, like you're not going to be competing for a championship next year. So I think like this should, as much as I criticize some of the issues with the Red Sox right now, this should be the start of something, right? When you look at the fact that you have the best prospect in the game and you extended him, you have one of the best pitchers in the game, you extended him. You have a solid number 2, number 3 in your rotation. He's extended. You can revisit the Joe Ryan trade that you were interested in the offseason and have a real 1-2 option in the rotation. So I think the Red Sox should be in the conversation going forward, but I just feel like NFL is king at this point. And the Celtics had all these championship runs where obviously won the East in 2022, losing the finals. They played in all these Eastern Conference finals.
Mm-hmm.
They win in 2024, and now they're taking a little bit of a step back. And the Patriots do have the opportunity to sort of get back into that number one spot if this can be the start of something. And look, they're in a good spot. They have a really good coach in Mike Vrabel, and they have the quarterback that they think can be the guy to actually replace Brady. Not to say he's going to win 6 Super Bowls or win MVPs, right?
No pressure there, right?
Yeah, but look, can he be somewhere between, like, not this year, I'm saying, but in the future, can he be constantly one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league? And if you have that, you're going to be in the conversation every year.
Yeah, exactly. It's always fascinating to me, but yeah, it feels like the Patriots have a stranglehold on the city. So I honestly, if you're good and you're any franchise in Boston, the city's going to rally. That's kind of the calling card there, is that the city will get behind you. But Brian, we appreciate you helping to fill the off-season doldrums that it is here in August for the NBA. Happy to talk about all the different Boston sports teams. What do you have on tap for the upcoming? We got a big series here against the Yankees. What does that recording schedule look like, and where can people find it?
Yeah, so we just posted one yesterday. We had Chad Graff from The Athletic on. We went through the roster projections and sort of predictions for the season. That was an all Patriots pod, which was fun because we've been doing a ton of Red Sox. And then Thursday night after Yankees Red Sox, we'll be recording a full episode after that, mixing some Patriots too, although not going to be a very entertaining final preseason game. The usual guys don't really play. So I guess the most intriguing thing will be sort of the kicker battle in that final game, but definitely hitting on a lot of Sox Yankees on the Thursday night pod.
All right. Well, Brian, I appreciate you joining us here, man. Always a pleasure having you on. Appreciate you guys listening to it. This was the baseball episode here of Green with Envy, where we did a little football too, baseball and football episode here. We'll be back next week. We'll see what happens, see if we got more for you from an NBA perspective. Maybe we'll do a draft, have a little gimmick. Who knows? It's the offseason. It gets weird. We'll have a little bit of fun. Appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will catch you later. Peace.